Before we even get started, tell them. If you have watched 2 or more of our videos and you have not subscribed, then we have what, pal? B. What do we have? B. Exactly, so you better get doing that right now before we even get started. Alright? If you have watched 2 or more of our videos and you have not subscribed, tell them. Then we have what, pal? B. What have we got? B. Exactly, so you better get doing that right now. I'm making this video today that I didn't initially want to make, but there comes a time when we're at a crossroads. You have to make a decision. Sometimes that decision can affect you morally, it can affect you spiritually, and it can affect you financially. But it's a decision that we can't shy away from. Now, recently, Just Pearly Things has been caught up in some controversy. Why? She has interviewed avid racist and known racist Nick Fuentes. He's also an anti-Semite. What did Pearl do when she interviewed him? What she done was that she laughed with him and seems to agree with a lot of his points.
Talk about instances of like when they initially freed the slaves, there were some slaves that felt so indebted to their owners that they would travel across states to pay them back, and they actually had a really good relationship with them.
Now, if she had said some of these things about the Jewish community, she would have been cancelled in a hot minute. Ask Kyrie Irving. Ask Kanye West. Now, this isn't about the Jewish community. This is about us. Okay? So after that interview, Pearl decided to make an apology video, which was, in my personal point of view, disingenuous and a PR stunt. And all in all, it came from a place of dissent.
Now to a neighborhood on edge in Pompano Beach after a body was found in a burning car. Our local 10 p.m. Marahone is live with reaction from some really frightened neighbors, and understandably so, Leanne.
Deception.
People say that stuff about me. They say I'm sexist. They say I'm a misogynist. And, you know, I really just like to give people the benefit of the doubt when I interview them. I don't go into interviews trying to interrogate someone. I just more try to listen and see where they're coming from. In hindsight, that wasn't smart. And in hindsight, I should have had someone, you know, maybe Sarah Garvey, maybe another content creator could have pushed back more and really was more educated on the topics that he was talking about than I was, because I certainly was not an expert in any of the stuff that he was talking about.
Now, I've been on social media for a while, and I have done interviews with the likes of Tommy Robinson, Sargon of Akkad, politicians like Lee Jasper, and also Lin May, and people from the music industry like So Solid, Mega Man to be exact. Now, Pearl was reacting to my content prior to coming to the UK. So when she came to the UK, I was very interested in the content that she would actually put out. And it just so happened that she was putting out content that I was interested in, similar to what the late great Kevin Samuels actually put out. And I understand it because I myself had been embroiled in court cases and things of that nature when it comes to the mother of my son, and understand that the gynocentric order in which we live in is something that needs to be spoken about. So when she came to London, she said that she wanted to make a podcast, and I said, no problem. Okay, let's talk about it. And I decided to feature on her show. Now, when I featured on her show, because of my following in the UK, people would tune in. So essentially, I helped Pearl grow her channel. Okay, I was on there week to week, and I was working with her based on a fee. So the tragic death of Kevin Samuels happened, and there was a vacuum within the Manosphere space. Who was it going to be filled by? It was actually filled by just Pearly Things, along with other content creators. Now, I believe that the reason why this space was filled is because Kevin Samuels had a large following of black men. And these black men were essentially fed up with the way feminism had taken over their community, specifically their women. So when he died, there was a vacuum and a lot of black men looking for content like this, and it was filled by Pearl. And I believe that Pearl rose to fame because she herself was the opposite of what those men had been seeing. She was a white woman. She wasn't the types of women that they had been seeing, and essentially she was regurgitating Kevin Samuels' content. So I began working with Pearl, and from the beginning, I started to think that maybe this girl has a colonial mindset. Now, we all know that we don't want to be paranoid, so I kept working with her. However, the more I worked with her, is the more that I saw. She had a colonial type viewpoint when it came to black people. And I had to school her a few times on what it was like to be black and the black experience, and also what slavery and colonization was actually like. Do you think that historical catastrophes must be compensated for?
No.
No.
That's stupid.
So then, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing.
Yeah.
So then, how come there were groups of people that got compensation? For
Okay.
instance, like Jewish people, Chinese people, Japanese people with the bombs. Like there were groups of people who got compensated.
I don't know.
So it wasn't fair.
What? Well, I'm talking about like when I think about group, I think about reparations. So I don't. I mean, maybe if the people were still alive today, like I don't know, maybe. But like when you said historical, I thought you meant like in the past,
in the
not
past.
the present.
Yeah, so like in the past, so like people talk about slavery. So in the past, you know, the Holocaust happened. In the past, you know, the Japanese, but people got compensated for it.
Yeah.
And there's a book, right, called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. And when you read that book, you realize that the whole Industrial Revolution and stuff like that was started because of the colonization. And you just think, well, if you didn't do that, then you wouldn't be as successful.
So what do you mean by the colonization?
So the colonization of Africa, so both the people and the resources, right? There's a direct correlation between the colonization of Africa and the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
And so with all the metals and the rubber and all this kind of stuff coming from Africa, it fueled the Industrial Revolution of the West.
Wait, so you're saying like in Africa, when you say colonize, you're saying like did England come in and colonize? Yeah,
like so European, France, Spain, Portugal, England. And
they like enslaved Africans? And
yes.
That's what you're saying? Okay.
So they enslaved and at least colonized the continent.
Okay.
So when you colonize a continent and then you take ownership of the resources, you're able to gather those resources together and use them to your own benefit.
Right.
And so you gather those resources, use them to your own benefit, and build up your economy, all the while messing up the economy of that actual country. Right. So that video was filmed in 2022. And in that video, what you saw was me attempting to tell Pearl and show Pearl how people went to another group of people and took their resources and took what was theirs and built their empire off of it. So when Pearl now plays like she doesn't know what colonization is, and she doesn't know what slavery is, and she says these insensitive statements, in that video, I actually attempted to give her a book. It was called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. I've read it myself. She semi-dismissed that book. She kind of dismissed that book. And then she went on with herself to go and interview a man like Nick Fuentes. Pearl has Africans that work for her. Now, Nigeria has many issues. Now, the disparity in Nigeria has rich and poor people living just on the breadline. And Pearl has these types of people working for her. They edit her videos. They make her thumbnails.
So, what I have is evidence to show how hard my Americans work. No, hold on. You forgot, yeah? This is how hard my white Americans work. Oh, yeah, sorry. They're very hard workers. I like how they work. My white Americans, they work hard. You see that? They inspire us to work hard. No. Do you know what? They don't even inspire. They're working hard for themselves, bro. You know, they're putting in a lot of work, yeah? They put in a lot of work. My white white Americans work hard. Yeah, you can.
So Pearl has taken people on from Africa, which on the surface looks like a good thing. And I guess it is. Africans are being fed, they're taken from her, they are feeding their family. Amazing. However, with a colonial mindset, this can be quite dangerous. And what happened during that interview with Nick Fuentes was that she used an age-old tactic that colonizers use, which was a divide and rule tactic. She pitted African Americans versus African when she spoke about how hard Africans work compared to how hard African Americans work. And she also used the term my Africans. Much of what Pearl says is determined by her management, which she has said to me on many occasions that she shares with Candace Owens. So when you have a colonial mindset and you have a management who tell you what to say, what generally happens, in my personal point of view, and what I actually saw, was that she began to start paying people pittance. She began to start offering contracts to people that owned them, just like a colonial master would. Case in point, myself and Pearl sat down to have a conversation about me signing to her contractually. And I want to make this very clear. I have never signed to the Just Pearly Things Network. I have always been an independent. Pearl has known that, and I have known that. And so anytime I worked with Pearl, we had agreed a fee, and I worked for that fee. I have never been signed to the Just Pearly Things contracts. However, she has signed a few Africans, namely King Riches and Auntie Jenny. Now, I have no problem with King Riches or an Auntie Jenny. However, if we look at the contracts that they signed, you would understand the reason why I use the term colonization and colonial. Now, myself and Pearl sat down to have a conversation. She expressed to me that she wanted to do a new segment for her show. In that segment, she said that she would like me to present a topical news show on a day-to-day basis. So I said, okay, no problem. Talk to me. What are we talking about? And she said she would want me within her studio 4 days per week. I said, okay, from what time? She said from 10 in the morning till 5 o'clock in the evening. And I said, okay, well, that is 7 hours. I said, so working 4 to 5 days a week for 7 hours is essentially a day job. I said to her, okay, so what is my guaranteed fee at the end of the month? What is the salary? She looks at me and she says, we do not do guarantees and we do not do salaries. So I said, So if you don't do guarantees and you don't do salaries, what is it that you actually do? And she said she does percentages. So I said, okay, cool. Well, what's the percentage? She said, Sarah, you're the high end, so you will get 70-30. So I said, fine, okay, let me listen. 70% goes to me and 30% goes to you. Now she looked at me and she said, no, 70% goes to me, Pearl, and 30% goes to me, Sarah Garvey. That's when I started scratching my head. And I said, hang on a minute. So are you telling me that's a high-end contract for you? She said, yes. And I said, so are you saying that Just Petty Things Network has other people on low-end contracts? She said, yes. I said, King Richard and Uncle Jenny. She said, yes. I said, what's the low end? She said, it's 10 to 15%.
CW30 News starts right now with breaking news.
So essentially, she could be owning 80% of the content, which is basically the monetized views on somebody's channel, and they only take home 15% of the money. She said, yes. I said, Pearl, how long are these contracts for? She said, 3 years. So I said, let me get this straight. You want to own me for 3 years to take 70% of my ad revenue, keep me in your studio from 10 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the evening for 4 to 5 days a week, not guaranteeing any money. I said, respectfully, for what reason would I work for your company? She said, because we have a great studio, we have great lighting, and we have great editors that will edit your stuff down. Now, I may be a lot of things, but I'm not an idiot. I may be cool, I may be calm, I may be collected, but I'm not a fool. And essentially, the colonial mindset of Pearl has people working on her quote-unquote plantation for absolute pittance, when a year ago, I suggested to her to look into exactly what colonization was, and she acted dumb.
People say that stuff about me. They say I'm sexist, they say I'm a misogynist. And, you know, I really just like to give people the benefit of the doubt when I interview them. I don't go into interviews trying to interrogate someone. I just more try to listen and see where they're coming from. In hindsight, that wasn't smart. And in hindsight, I should have had someone, you know, maybe Sarah Garvey, maybe another content creator that could have pushed back more and really was more educated on the topics that he's talking about than I was, because I certainly was not an expert in any of the stuff that he was talking about.
Now, I grew up in a time where there were brilliant R&B girl groups like TLC, and also brilliant R&B artists like Toni Braxton. They both sold millions and millions and millions of records, but they ended up broke. Why? Contracts. They were signed to contracts that did not favor them. And essentially, what Pearl is trying to do is come back in with the same contracts and do the exact same thing to the manosphere, and do the exact same thing to the Red Pill community. Why? Because Kevin Samuels left a gap, and Kevin Samuels' fan base was predominantly black men, and Pearl has come in there and attempted to be top of the food chain. I will not be a part of this game, and I will not be a part of this colony. I have always been an independent. If people in the UK who can actually say and watch all of my content can say that I've been around before Pearl even arrived in the UK, what would I look like signing my life away, essentially, 70% of all I own, to this woman who just arrived in the UK the other day? She said to me that she's actually looking to sign more talent this year. Good for her. Good for the talent. But I hope they watch this video, and I hope they realize exactly what they will be signing. And I actually hope that this video makes her think about the ways, because essentially I had been with her from the beginning and I had helped grow her channel. And if she could suggest this to me, somebody who helped her grow her channel, then you are nothing to her. I have only given you around 30% of what I know. We haven't even touched on the very odd and weird parties that Pearl likes to invite people to. And I was invited to one last year, and she told me that her manager was coming from America and they were going to have a party. And very interestingly, they said that it was going to be board games. And I said, okay, cool. I don't mind playing Monopoly. I don't mind playing Snakes and Ladders. When I got there and I asked her about the board game, she said, no, a board game. There was a whiteboard in the living room. And what she proposed was that we all have a time on the whiteboard and we do what she says and we talk about certain things which were quite sexual and we put them on the whiteboard. But you know what I saw? I always saw her manager Kobe in the corner filming everything. And we've all spoken amongst ourselves and we've spoken about Hollywood and the things that go down. And within that party, what I saw was if people were on that board doing very sexual things and doing things while they were drunk, that stuff was being recorded. But we'll speak about it another time.
I want to ask the men here.
Okay.
Women, raise your hand if you think women like violence.
Just Curly, what's up, man? Shit, boy, you miss. Now I don't really like you. I don't even care. But you ain't gonna pimp my people. Now if them Africans sign them shits, that's them. I ain't no African. But I am a man though. And y'all need to go back to wherever the fuck you came from, you feel me? Cause you having all these tough discussions, but you don't have the knowledge or the information to even have these conversations. So it's like, who are you? And I'm not gonna address your racism because everybody's entitled to be, you know, to be racist or whatever. But you just got kind of outed by one of your co-hosts, and he said a couple of interesting things, and you pretty much slaving people for peanuts, 15, 10%, 30% at the most. Cuh, what you think this is? This is not slavery. And if anybody signs to do to get 15 to 10% of the earnings and ain't no guaranteed salary, oh my God, you got people working uh, you got 3-year contracts on these people to build your shit. So you pretty much got slaves for 3 years. Anything they do, you gonna make 80% off top. Yeah, that's a new age. That's that new age 360 dub. That's crazy. But y'all let me know what y'all think about it. I'm pretty getting up out of here.